Alright, good afternoon YouTube. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the Beyond Leaner program made by Mike Matthews. You can find him on Muscle for Life Fitness. He is a writer of books. I'm reading from his, biography, like info, I don't know. Like CEO of Legion, which I've actually not too familiar with. And he has free meal and workout plans and other tools below. He has a impressive physique. I don't know all too much about him. This is my first time actually hearing of this guy, but I'm going to be reviewing his Beyond Leaner program because it was sent in to me by a subscriber. So if you have any programs that you want me to review, please send them in to me to kind of protect his identity. I call him George, but you know who you are, and I'm doing this for you. So thank you so much for sending me this program. I'd be more than happy to review any other program you want to send me or anyone else would want to send me. So this is, from what it looks like, a 5-day split with 3 upper body days and somewhat of a questionable split when it comes to the pull and leg days. So I made some notes regarding this program, and there's a couple things that just really stand out to me when it comes to this program in general. And there's as much good as there is bad, but I think that there might be other things that we're going to uncover together as we talk about this program. Let me adjust my monitor and my camera real quick. So for one, I don't think it's a bad thing that there's 3 upper body days. Me personally, I have done a program where my lower body days, so I had 2 lower body days, a deadlift focused lower body day. So basically 2 deadlifts, 1 squat variation, and then on a squat focused lower body day, it's more so like 2 squats, 1 deadlift variation. I think that's fine. I think that's very good. Is that what is happening here though? I do not think so. So the main issue here is the fact that if you look at these upper body days, upper body day A, B, and C, what you'll notice is that for the most part, these are just, especially with upper body A, which is the most guilty of this, it's a chest, triceps, and shoulder day. Then on upper body B, let's see, same thing, shoulders, a little bit of rear delts, biceps, and then side raises. So basically you have one main movement and then 3 accessories from the looks of it. And then on the final upper body day, you're going to have 2 presses, 1 pull, and 1 curl. So this already is somewhat of a red flag in my opinion when it comes to programming. So me personally, I really try my best to make sure the pulls either match equally, so 1-to-1 ratio of pull to push, or slightly go beyond. Now, there are some strength coaches who, and it's kind of become a meme at this point, who will say you need to do double the amount of pulls to your push. And they don't mean this in terms of weight. When I first heard that advice, I thought it meant weight, and I took it to heart, and it wasn't sustainable, but it wasn't really bad either, because I got my barbell row to the same strength for the same number of weights, same number of reps, same number of sets as my bench press. And that was good. I really do attribute a lot of my back and trap gains at the time for that piece of advice. But when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to doing more pulls than pushes, I think of it more so as a volume thing, not so much as a tonnage thing, because what you're really trying to do is really just trying to keep your shoulders healthy. But here you will notice that might be a problem, because here's the issue. You have 3 upper body days. You have 1 day where it's more pull focused, and even if you have, let's say, the 1 pull exercise on upper body C, it just doesn't balance out at all. So there's going to be an imbalance between your pushes and your pulls. And in my opinion, when it comes to the best physique, your back is going to be one of the defining features of your physique. If you want to look big in shirts, you need to look broad, you need to look wide, you need to have traps, so that way you don't just have these 2 little plateaus hanging off your neck. You have this gradual climb going up to your neck. Now, my neck isn't that big, but we're working on that. But anyway, so that is something you need to be very cognizant of when it comes to your programming. Are your pushes and your pulls fairly balanced, fairly distributed? Because here's the thing. You could easily fix this just by including, let's say, barbell bench press supersetted with face pulls, supersetted with rear delt flies. These are things you could easily superset. So let's say incline barbell bench press. You turn around, have some dumbbells in your hand, and do reverse flies. Easily fix it right there, because now you are doing something of a pull motion, or even doing like let's say rear delt row after you do your incline barbell bench press, and boom, like you're taking advantage of that and you're balancing out your pushes and your pulls. Now, when it comes to everything else here, let's see. So I'm just looking at my notes. Let's get into what I actually do like, because I don't just want to shit all over this program. I actually do want to have more discussion about what is positive, so that way you can see what it is you can take away and what you can actually take from and learn from and use in your own programming. So in this, let's see, the upper body movements. So let's look at upper body A. What you will notice is that they do change from time to time. The close on upper body A, there is the barbell bench press followed by the close grip bench press. Now that's for the first macro cycle. I think he means mesocycle because the macro cycle usually refers to the whole year, whereas a mesocycle refers to 4 weeks. And even in his own programming on another page, on another part of the spreadsheet, so what I did, I just kind of put the two spreadsheets right on top of each other. Here he calls it a mesocycle, 4 weeks, but here he calls it a macrocycle. So I mean, it's pedantic to call it, to be might be pedantic or semantic or whatever to get into that. But if you're going to try to market this or sell it or even give it as a free program, your free content should be almost as good as your paid for content. But anyway, getting back into my original point, if you look at the primary movement. So the primary movement, the barbell bench press followed by close grip bench. In the second macro cycle, really the mesocycle, it changes from the barbell bench press to the dip. So I do like how the barbell bench press is not being switched out. Now, I trained conjugate for an entire year. That means that there would be anywhere between 3 to 4 months before I would see just a regular flat bench press. That's how much time will go between that time. And that is not always necessary for strength gains. It's not always necessary for size gains. It's something that is going to be very dependent on your preferences and what you're going to do. But there's a lot of benefit to keeping this constant. Your tonnage will remain constant. Your technique will always be crisp. And there's that. The things that you want to be kind of keep in mind to really cut down on mileage in your program is that rotation of your secondary movement, which is oddly named primary too. Like it's kind of like when you have two people who are number one. But so your primary and number two movement, that varies. One thing I would like to see though is on macro cycle 3, it just goes back to the first week or first mesocycle version. So it goes from close grip bench to dip to close grip bench press. At that point, it's just like, why not just do macro cycle again? Because here's the thing. The only difference between macro cycle 1, macro cycle 3 is the fact that you do tricep overhead press. And I think that doesn't really justify it having its own macro cycle, because then that becomes the defining feature. How does it differentiate from the other macro cycles, mesocycles really? Sorry, I'm getting like tripped up over that because it's just weird to see it so misnamed. But anyway, when it comes down to that, like, I do like having multiple variations because I am a fan of variation. Like I said, I did conjugate, but also when it comes to exercise variations for size or strength, there's definite benefits in either direction. But here, what I would have done is barbell close grip bench, maybe something like a floor press, maybe an incline bench where you're doing it now for more so for intensity, whereas here it could be more for volume. Like on upper body day C, you do incline for volume, but over on the third macro cycle, you do, instead of doing close grip bench, you do incline for pushing the intensity on it, doing sets of 2 to 5, 3 to 6, 4 to 8. I would have much rather have seen that, and then dumbbell side lateral raise. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do when it comes to developing that, and that's the staple, but it's not the only thing you can do. So, I would just like to see more variations on the secondary press as well as the accessories. The accessories are kind of where you're supposed to have fun, you know? Like, the accessories, especially in a program like this, I don't think this program is meant to really be for powerlifters or people more focused on strength. Sorry, there's something stuck in my teeth, I think. I was trying to get it out. Sorry, that is disgusting. But anyway, I do not think this program is meant for that, because if it was, then this the quality of this program like would drop drastically. But I'm going to judge it from a hypertrophy standpoint because that's what I think this is mainly for. But let's get into the bad. So when it comes to the upper body day A, and let's see, B, I think is guilty of this as well. C is the least guilty of this, but generally speaking, I still don't think that gives it a pass. Because if you look at these upper body days, like I said, it's chest, triceps, shoulders. That's it. Where is the rear delts? Where is the traps? Where are the biceps? Where are the forearms? The problem with upper body days, especially if you're doing an upper lower, is the fact that the upper body has way more muscles that you can target and isolate than compared to the lower body. The squat and the deadlift do great at maximizing the size of that region. And if you add something like lunges, maybe some Nordic hamstring curls or hamstring curls in general, those are 4 exercises. Now, let's say we try to apply the same thing on the upper body. Let's say we do bench, row, overhead press, and pull up. So we tackle 2 horizontal, so we do a horizontal push and pull, we do a vertical push and pull. If we were to stick with that, our forearms don't get direct work, our biceps don't get direct work, the long head of our tricep does not get direct work, the medial head of our shoulders doesn't get direct work, and our traps don't get direct work. That is a lot of things that don't get a lot of work. So when you do an upper lower, you're not super strict with it. You try to allocate some of that onto your lower body days where it makes sense. And honestly, the ones that make the most sense are things like traps, shoulders, and maybe even forearms. Because let's say you're doing your lower body day, it's a deadlift day. You have the bar in your hands. You can do, let's say, Romanian deadlifts, and then on your last rep, instead of just letting the bar go down to the floor, you do shrugs. That in and of itself will help you get your volume in for the traps, and now you're able to balance out the amount of time you're in the gym on your first upper body day and your lower body day. So they're about equal because, like I said, upper body days just generally have way more muscles and way more movements that you can do to target everything in it. So it's better to split it up. But like I said, this is just chest, shoulders, and triceps. That's not good programming. The next thing I don't like, so if you look at the progression, right? My biggest issue with progression like this is the fact that it's well, pretty shit, to be honest. Like, I mean, it'll work, but for how long? That's the issue. Like, it'll work short term, but when it comes to you training, you being a long lifetime lifter, this is not going to be what you should want to be focusing on, in my opinion. So look, you have start at 70% for 4 sets of 10, then you do 75%. So here's the thing, a 5% increase is way bigger than what you would think in comparison to, let's say, a 5-pound or 10-pound jump. So let me just make sure I'm actually right on that, because I'm horrible at math. But anyway, so let's say your max on, let's say, a squat is 315, and then you do 70% of that. 70% of 315 is, for all intents and purposes, it's 220.5. So you can maybe round that up to do 225. But let's say you do 75% of 315. So times 0.75. That's 15. That's a 16-pound jump. Like, that is way beyond what you would actually prescribe than any other protocol that I can think of would actually want you to do, especially since this seems to be a novice program, to be completely honest. So I know that might matter less the lighter you go, because, you know, the difference between, like, I don't know, 95 pounds to 100 might not be that great. But even then, like, the fact that you're adding 5% is something that you do very rarely. And if you were to take such a huge jump in the intensity, you want to progress for as long as you can, do something like step loading with a specific weight, and then you take a bigger jump. So for example, let's say you do 315 and you do that for 3 sets of 3 to 5. But 315 was first, like, kind of like a weight that you can do only Jesus, sorry, I had poke. But 315 was something that you can only do 1 to 3 reps with. You turn something from a 1 to 3 to a 3 to 5. At that point, it might become more acceptable to do a 5% jump, not a 5-pound jump, a 5% jump. So this progression, I don't totally agree with, especially because, let's see, you're only dropping So you go from 40 reps to 32 reps to 24 reps. So my biggest issue with this is the fact that when you do programs that are just too linear in both directions, meaning the moment your weight goes up, your reps and sets go down immediately. I don't really like that, generally speaking. I think it's not the best way to progress unless you're trying to peak, because that's the point. But if you're trying to train, if you're trying to develop yourself, if you're trying to get better, this, in my opinion, is not the right way to go about it. And like, yeah, this is just literally a peaking cycle. This is not a developmental phase at all. And you're using straight sets and straight weights for each microcycle, mesocycle, whatever he decides to call it at any given time. And then you go from there. But anyway, so let's go into the pull and calf day. The primary movement is the barbell deadlift. And on macrocycle 2, mesocycle 2, and it's the trap bar. And on mesocycle 3, it's going to be the sumo deadlift. So I like this. I like the fact that you are using multiple different types of deadlifting. So that means this is like a program that I don't know what it's trying to do, what it's trying to accomplish, and what it's trying to achieve, because there's a lot of mixed signals. You're doing a progression where weight goes up, sets and reps go down accordingly. So that tells me you're peaking. You're alternating exercise variations. So that means you're trying to develop something, in my opinion. And then you are, to me, this program just doesn't know what it's trying to do and what it's trying to be. So with the barbell deadlift to a trap bar to a sumo, I think that's great. But then you go into pull-ups, one arm dumbbell row, or seated cable row, or T-bar row. So that's great. You have different types of rows. One thing I would say is the fact that when you do exercise rotations, one thing you want to be very aware of is the fact that, does the rotation make sense? Meaning, is the technique and the amount of weight lifted in this variation going to be fairly consistent across variations? What you're trying to do with exercise variations is change the strength curve. You're trying to change the way the forces and tension is acting on your body to decrease mileage on the body. So when you have exercise variations such as this, I mean, you're going into a one-arm dumbbell row to a seated cable row to a T-bar row. I mean, generally speaking, T-bar row is going to be the heaviest, so maybe like this isn't that bad because you're going from a very light variation to a moderate variation to a very heavy one. But for me personally, what I would rather see is, let's say you do the T-bar row, then on the other one you do, like, let's say a bent over row, and then on the other one you do maybe a pen lay row. So that way it's still somewhat consistent in the sense that your technique and the load being lifted is fairly stable across time. But the way it's acting on your body, the way the forces are acting on your body is very different. And then for the other accessory, it could be something else. Seated calf raise, seated calf raise, seated calf raise, or standing calf raise. Wow, such a big difference. So for one, this is why I like supersets. Because let's say you only want to do 4 things in a day. Because that's what I do. I only do 4 things in a day. I have my main strength work, my secondary work, and then I have 2 accessories for the purpose of building up muscles and just targeting certain movement patterns or muscles used in the main movements. Like, that's what I do. But this is why I like supersets. So for example, barbell deadlift, and then you do pull-ups. I'll do pull-ups after, let's say, a leg press, a goblet squat. And now you're balancing out the day a lot better, because from the looks of it, you really only have 1 leg day. I mean, you are doing 3 upper body days where you are doing, like, if you're doing a split like this, honestly, there's a better way to do it. So there's a lot of things to kind of nitpick when it comes to this. But anyway, this is why I like supersets. After, like, 1 arm dumbbell row, goblet squats and 1 arm dumbbell row. Pull-ups, do front squats, leg press, whatever. Then you can balance it out. You can get more out of your training session, because honestly, with something like this, 4 sets of 10, 8, 6, or whatever. For one, like, here's another thing that I just realized. Why would you do 4 sets of 10 on a barbell deadlift with 70%? So let's see what that looks like, honestly. So my deadlift right now is around I'll be kind of generous and put it at 535, and I'll multiply that by 7. So that's 375 pounds for 4 sets of 10. I don't think you understand just how much of a endurance component that is, especially with certain movements like the deadlift. The deadlift is different than a bench press. For example, 90% of my bench press I can do 5+ reps at. But if I were to do 90% of my deadlift, I can do maybe 1 to 3. So they're not equivalent in that sense just because the numbers are there. So that's why when it comes to progressing in certain movements, they have to be different. You have to use different numbers. You have to use different percentages. You don't progress your barbell bench press the same way you would your barbell deadlift. You just wouldn't, because it wouldn't work like that. It works like that when you're a beginner because you're just weak everywhere. So that's why you can get away with it. But as you start to get stronger, as you start to develop, one of the first things people will say is the fact that, let's say you're trying to take your deadlift from 315 to 405. Your bench press is at around like 185, and you're trying to bring that up to 225 to 245. The approaches you would implement would be very, very different because the movements are different, the muscles involved are different, the absolute number of weight you're lifting is different, so it doesn't really matter. So the fact that something like this exists, it tells me that it's a novice program. But let's say someone who's not a novice picks it up because, this guy has a fairly decent following and he has a good physique, and they trust him based on that, and then they run it, and then they kind of wonder why they kind of stall out or why they can't finish the program, and then they'll think to themselves, oh my god, I'm a failure. So there's something to be said there. Pull-ups, chin-ups, pull-ups again. So pull and calf day, not the best. I mean, the fact that you are alternating between the barbell deadlift, trap bar deadlift, and sumo deadlift, I think is great. But yeah, superset the rest, man, because like it's very easy to throw in some supersets here. Like, to be completely honest with you, like with your chin ups and pull ups, do a front squat, or just do pause squats with light weight, like maybe 50% of whatever you use on the other leg day. But anyway, let's get into the upper body B, because this one looks more focused on the overhead press. So in this program, you are benching twice, overhead pressing once, and deadlifting once, squatting once. So this is a very bench focused program. Is there anything wrong with that? No, but if you are going to do a benched focus program, you have to also kind of understand what goes along with that. The bench doesn't take care of the shoulders all that much. So you need to do some exercises that will really benefit the shoulder health and the development and size of the shoulder as well. So I mean, side raises, I know that there's this whole like kind of like argument and debate going on whether or not the overhead press is even necessary, which I made a video saying why you should do the overhead press, but I feel like a sequel video might be, or companion piece might be necessary, because there's a couple things that I feel like wasn't able to address or did not address that people keep bringing up when it comes to the overhead press. But here, like, regardless, you are doing significantly more horizontal pushing than you are vertical pushing, and you're doing significantly less pulling than you are pushing in general. I do not like that at all. So alternating dumbbell curl, hammer curl, alternating dumbbell curl. So here's the thing: you have the opportunity for 3 different variations of lifts, and I think that is more than enough. Having 3 staple exercises, I kind of recommend having 3 to 5. Having 3 to 5 staple exercises of each movement pattern. So what are the 3 to 5 best horizontal pushes for you? For me, it's going to be the barbell bench press, incline bench press, dumbbell bench press, push-ups, and dips. I think I can develop my chest more than well enough with just that. Anything else is kind of just maybe for fun, experimentation, or to be lazy, because like I didn't throw in machine presses in there. But I do think they have value, and generally it's kind of like there's less mental fatigue, but you still get a really good stimulus to fatigue ratio. But that's his own thing. But anyway, here you have the opportunity to do so much better than just basically alternate between just two, but really you're only doing it one time. So like, for example, tricep press down, no, do like a French press, like, or overhead tricep press down, easy bar skull crusher, and then do something like a JM press or something like that, like expose yourself to more accessories. If you're going to go down that size focus route, do that, man. Like experiment, try things out, really figure out what muscles or what movements hit your muscles better than others, you know? That's going to be the most important thing. Like, don't just go in and change things up every single week, but actually commit yourself to a specific amount of time, which is available in this program template, to a specific variation, see how it affects your body, see how you like it, and then go from there. Let's see. But yeah, anyway, with upper body B, you are doing the standing military press followed by rear delt fly, alternating dumbbell curl, dumbbell side raise. The rear delt fly and dumbbell curl, dumbbell side raise can be done as a giant set, meaning this day can get done in 30 to 45 minutes, quite honestly. I maybe closer to 45 minutes. But this is why this program is interesting to say the least. But let's get into the leg day: barbell back squat, leg press, leg curl, lying or seated, doesn't really matter. Leg press, calf raise, leg press, calf. So here's the thing: why would you go from the leg press to a different machine, and you're doing 4 sets of 10, 4 sets of 8, 4 sets of whatever on each of them? Why would you go from one to the other when you could just superset them both? So you're doing 4 sets of 10 no matter what. Or yeah, honestly, because look, if you look at the accessory reps and sets, they're all 4 sets. Everything is 4 sets. Everything is 4 sets of 10 to 12 or 8 to 10 on the last couple of weeks, because that makes such a big difference. And then on the primary sets, it's all 4 sets of 10, 4 sets of 8, 4 sets of 6. And then you have a deload week, which is weird, because like I said, this thing is all over the place, because, or maybe I'm all over the place, because it looks like a novice program, but it has you deloading. It's progressing you like a novice, it's treating you like a novice, and then it has you deload. I'm confusion. I mean, I can explain. But anyway, do I get like, oh, never mind. So yeah, like leg press, calf raise, you're already on the machine. This is why, like, anytime I do a Smith machine squat, a hack squat, anything where I'm on a machine doing some type of leg movement, I just superset calves right after. It doesn't matter if I care about my calves or not. I'm there, might as well do it anyway. Honestly, it doesn't affect my recovery all that much for my next set of squats. It doesn't like hamper it or make it feel worse at all. So just do that. Barbell front squat, barbell good morning, walking dumbbell lunge, seated calf raise. So here's my big issue. The front squat is not, for most people, a main squat variation that you should throw in, because generally speaking, unless they deliberately try to make it a 1-to-1 ratio, it's not going to be. Most people's back squat is always going to be stronger than their front squat. So the fact that it's taking the place of the #1 primary movement of the day means that your tonnage is going to fluctuate, and then the next time you go into the barbell back squat, it's going to feel awkward and weird. So here I would have much rather they have done what they did with the barbell bench press, where they kept the back squat constant, the secondary movement changes. And here, like, so for example, on macrocycle, mesocycle 1 is leg press, mesocycle 2, good morning. That means you have a knee flexion, and then you have a hip hinge taking the place of it. Decide what you want to do. Split squats, so unilateral work, but then on the other one is hamstring work. So honestly, like, when it comes to like making a template of your training, it's much better to kind of set up archetypes for what's going to take place in your program. So see how it says here, primary #1, primary #2, secondary really. But so let's say, for example, primary 1, it's going to be your heavy press of the day, heavy squat of the day. The second part of it is either going to be, let's say, a pull, a supplemental movement, a complementary movement, or it's going to be the opposite movement pattern. So if it's a squat, on the opposite secondary movement, I'm going to do a hinge variation or something more close to a hinge and go from there. But that's not happening here, which is not something I like. Upper body day C, incline barbell bench press. I mean, yeah. I mean, like, here's the thing, like, when you're benching this much, you might as well throw in other things. Like, there's other things you could do. Where's the floor pressing? Where's the board pressing? Where's the pin pressing? If you're going to be doing it this much, if you're doing it this frequently, especially, you really want to make sure you're not going to like develop overuse injuries, and you do that with variations. So the fact that it's variations here are kind of lackluster is somewhat disappointing. So yeah, I guess we did find out that there's more bad than good here. Reverse grip bench, dumbbell bench, barbell row, cable curl. So I'm going to kind of leave the program alone for a couple reasons. Like, there's not much thought going into the progression. It's the same on every single compound lift. That tells me it's the same for every single workout. You're doing, like, basically you're doing the same thing every single day with just different movements, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. different movements, different goals deserve their own specific progression plan, especially because you probably have muscles you want to develop more than others. You have movements that you feel more comfortable with than others. You have things that you're trying to address within your program more than another one. So that needs to progress in a way that is different from other things in the program, which is why this program I feel like is weird. Deloading is something kind of for the late novice, early intermediate. This progression is definitely a novice progression scheme. The exercise selection, nothing like, I do like how there's variety in it, so that's a plus, but it's very mismanaged and misapplied. There's not enough pull. There's not enough. This is why I like supersets. Like this, like you're able to keep a template such as this, where you're keeping your workouts pretty short and concise, like capping out at about an hour 30 at most, because but you still get so much more work done because you do supersets. So it really pains me to see this, to be completely honest. And the fact that upper body days are, there's 3 upper body days, but most of them have barely any pull, and it's all just going to go on one day. No, that's not going to fly. That's not going to work. So this program, if you modify it, it could be good. But there's a lot of, but at that point, so here's the thing: if you were to modify this, it could be good because it's very similar to what I do. The only difference is you cannot use this progression scheme at all, and if you take away this progression scheme, it no longer becomes this program. So there's that. Throw in more exercises. Let things have their own. Like, for example, like let's say you do 3 sets on the primary and secondary movement. On accessories, you do only 2 sets, but you push the intensiveness on there. So let's say you do 3 sets of, let's do 4 to 8, followed by a secondary movement for 3 sets of 6 to 10. Then you do 2 sets of 8 to 12 for 2 different exercises, and you do some like maybe drop set, rest, pause, because it's a non-consequential exercise such as a tricep press down, or something like that, and you can really push the intensiveness on it, and then you'll be good. This would be a much better program. So overall, this program does not impress me. It does not give me the impression that this is a program that could be done more than once, and that's kind of horrible. Because for one, like, let's see. Let me move. Oh, that's not what I want to move. Let me move myself. So here, you do 2 sets of 1 at 90%. So 4 sets of 2 at 90%. So I mean that means you're doing 10 total reps with 90%. If you're using Prilipin's chart, which we can have an argument made whether or not that's going to be the most useful for a program such as this, because Prilipin's chart was made for weightlifting, not powerlifting or even bodybuilding. But you're doing it for 10 reps, so not too bad. But here's the thing: you're gonna then go off an estimate of your new Wonder Max to repeat this process. You don't need a new Wonder Max every single time you make like every time you progress and like run through your progression scheme again. You don't need a new Wonder Max to do that, but you do need something a bit more tangible than this, because it's always going to be operating off of an estimation rather than previous performance, whether that comes in the form of a Wonder Max or, let's say, rep performance and another means. It doesn't matter, but it's just much clearer with other forms of progression, in my opinion. So this is a 12-week cycle. It's a couple things are all over the place. You're pushing so much more than you are pulling. You're training 5 days a week. So let's see. If I had to guess, if you really ran through this program and you're already fairly strong, you're going to develop overuse injuries. You're going to burn out pretty quickly because the progression of weights is just so goddamn fast. Like 15%, like 15 or 5% is about 15 pounds, like depending on where your lift is at. And obviously the weaker you are, the more you get away with it. But if you are like approaching that late novice, early intermediate stage, and you do a program like this, you're going to run into issues very, very quickly. You just are. And here's the other thing: if you are in that situation, you might not have a 1-to-1 ratio between your barbell deadlift, trap bar deadlift, sumo deadlift. But here it has you operating off the assumption that they're all going to be the same, and they're not. So if you were to run this, or maybe it doesn't actually, like, I don't know. No, it does actually. Shit, this program is just kind of all over the place. I think what happened when this program was made, it read a lot of different books, sources of information, strength training books, bodybuilding programs. Like it basically tried to become the program that did everything right, mashed it all together, and became something that did everything wrong. So this program is not something I would recommend. I'm not saying, I'm just saying this program in isolation. I don't know the guy's work. I don't know what he believes in. I don't know his training philosophy overall, or like what the rest of his programs are like. But this program in isolation, the Beyond Leaner program made by, I forgot his name already, is not something I recommend for me personally, for strength or for size. Because if you were to do this for strength, like overuse injuries, like progression is too quick, you are, it's just peaking. There's no development. There's like, that's the downsides of it for a strength training program. What about for size? Look at all the muscles you are leaving out. Like, you look at all the muscles you're leaving out and look at all the imbalances you're creating. That is what's the downside is for this program for size. There's a lot of good ideas here. It's just they're put in at the wrong time in the wrong place. Like, so if you were to learn from this program, there's definitely something here to learn, but is this something you should actually use? No. No. There's way better programs available to you for free on YouTube. There's other ones available for you on different websites. This, I mean, to kind of give this program a reason for existing, if you really want short workouts, maybe you could do this, but you wouldn't do this as written, honestly. If you really want short workouts, something like this is going to work, but you would want to switch up some exercises, move some things around, get more volume in, and split things up and go from there. I don't know. I don't like this program. So D, maybe even an F. Did I ever give an F when it comes to these program reviews? Like, I don't even know anymore, but too many free programs try to be like, I don't know why, like I feel like they're made with the intention that this is going to be the last program people use to get to their goals. Like, no, like that's why, like, when it comes to the programs that I make, it's kind of like, it's a program that you can add to, it's a program you can take away from, it's a program that it just gives you a base, you know, it just gives you a base that you can eventually add in different things. So it's like, oh, like you take the program that I gave you, and then he's like, well, I want to try doing a little bit of conjugate stuff. What can I do with my current program and to put that in? And then you just like take out the first strength thing, and then you replace that with the max effort stuff, and then you go from there. Like, or you want to add in another exercise because you feel fit enough, like your workouts are getting done faster, and then now you're like, well, if I were to add another exercise, what exercise should I add? I already did this, I already did that, I already did this, so what can I add? You add another accessory that kind of hits something that you want, and then you're like, oh, what kind of sets and reps should I do? Well, you already know how the progression works on other exercises, so you develop this base of knowledge when it comes to these programs. Like, no program should ever be made with the intention of, this is going to be the last program you're ever going to use, this is going to be the program that's going to take you to your goal. Like, unless you have a personalized program that someone makes for you for the sole purpose of actually reaching that goal, any cookie cutter program, any free program out there is not going to do that. It's just trying to cover as many bases as it can, and this one does it really, really poorly. So, F. If you're going to do a 5-day split, there's much better ways to do it. Lane Norton had a better way to do it. I did his program review pretty recently. Like upper lower push pull legs, or, you know, rearrange the push pull part, or even like 5-day full body, do like upper lower, or upper lower, upper lower, upper lower, upper. So 3 lower days, 2 lower body days, which is what I think he tried to do here, but he just failed to do so completely. So yeah, sorry, I kind of went all Filipino at the end because the kids are trying to go to sleep, but the parents keep saying goodbye to each other for an hour. So I'm just kind of in disbelief. Because when I was reviewing this program at first, I was like, when I was making my notes, like I was pretty happy when it came to a lot of these things, the fact that there was variation and whatnot. But, you know, as I started to like read between the lines and like really look into it, I just became more and more disappointed that this is what exists out there. So if you decide to run this program, run it at your own risk of overuse and imbalanced progression. But that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Carlos King, StanceTraining.com, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.